Ah, hello. Am I vertical? Did I accidentally go live vertical? Oh no. All right, I guess we're doing vertical today. I don't know, somebody tell me if I can, geez. All right, well, I mean, I guess it's more natural to be vertical if you're gonna be streaming from a phone anyways. Actually saves me from having to hold it weird. Yeah, okay, this works. It's just a little, yeah, I don't know, I guess it works out. Hi everybody. Hey Nathan, tell me where you guys are from. We got Nathan Raj, Daniela, Zach, Gino Hoshi, Melissa Gavin, Ben, Dick, hey, Non-Euclidean Dreamer, how's it going? Jonathan Haywood, here we go. Oh yeah, yeah, get ready for the live stream. Live stream. Gotta do it in one. Hello from Germany, from Constance, from London, from Germany. You got two from Germany. What? What is it? What? I don't know. Hello from Poland. That's how we gotta go. Yeah. We're going to the park, cause in my home it's too dark. I don't wanna be inside all the time. I don't know what to rhyme. From Denmark, from Pennsylvania, from California, Sacramento, CA today, Vancouver, right, living in the Bay Area for now. Now we are three. Oh, great that you can improvise so naturally. From Minnesota, San Francisco. Hello, bro. Roger Gonclaves Martins, don't you know? From Iowa, Denmark as well. Greetings from Chile. What the hell? Hi from France. Helium superfluid. Very cool. Who else we got? Sally from Ohio. Where are you walking? We're going to the park today. We're gonna walk down this street. I felt like it was a nice day. Lots going on. I didn't want to be stuck in my home. I'm allowed to be out, so I'm gonna be out. We're gonna go and we're gonna sit in the park. We're gonna see some squirrels. Hey, from the Canary Islands, Spain. Hello from France. This was an oddball stream to introduce my friend to. Sorry, Zach. We have all sorts of things. Some are good introductions. If your friend doesn't enjoy this, then tell him/her to not worry about it, and they never have to come back, or if they do, they can get back to one of the more normal ones. Hello from Austria. Hey, Harsh Shah. Hey, from Lancashire. Imam Guzians from Lancashire. Tim, did you remember to bring a bottle of water this time? I did not remember to bring a bottle of water. Instead, I forgot to charge my phone all the way. So we're gonna see how long we can actually do this for. I suspect that it's gonna be maybe an hour, a little more than an hour, something like that. Maybe we can try to circle back home before we run out of battery, so the stream doesn't suddenly and impromptu die on us. But we'll see. Hello. And try to be pleasant to people while you're out here, even if you got to keep your distance. It's all right, Tim. I'll tell them to catch the first one when you worked on the quarantine song. Yeah, I might. Once I'm done with this, I'll probably head back to home and do a Twitch stream, like the usual production one, because I do want to keep getting quarantine done. But for now, how's the wind, by the way? Sudden death more. Happy Arbor Day. Is it Arbor Day? What's Arbor Day? Somebody tell me what Arbor Day is. I know it's something to do with trees, but being a Canadian, I don't think we have Arbor Day. Is Arbor Day a thing that people have other than in America? Yeah, I don't know. I haven't been outside in too long of a time. Siraj Baruch is from India. How you doing? Must be, is it middle of the night there? Or is it already the next morning? Sudden death, more like impromptu die. All right, Siraj, I heard you the first time. Oh, look, we've got a whole legion of people. A legion of people coming out to explore. Well, at least one of them wearing a mask. Yeah, so I'm not sure what we're gonna do today. I'm just really, I don't know, I'm antsy. I'm a little bit frazzled. My sister went in for her first, so my sister's a speech therapist, speech language pathologist, pediatrics, she works with kids. But she's technically a government employee, technically a government health employee. So here in the province of Quebec, where I live in Montreal, which is pretty much the center of COVID for Canada, the situation has been that they stocked up really early to get the hospitals prepped. The hospitals have lots of staff, lots of equipment, but they didn't think about nursing homes nearly enough. And they pretty much put all their resources into the hospitals and actually sent a lot of hospital patients into nursing homes with insufficient staff and kind of overcrowded. So now our nursing homes are just devastated. There are some that have like a 75% infection rate and like half the staff is off sick. And so the government has decided as of yesterday that they're pulling everyone who's even tangentially a health employee off of what they're usually doing, and they're sending them in to be PABs for the nursing homes, which basically means you're cleaning and feeding sick patients, for which my sister has no training. They're giving them like an afternoon to get ready to figure out how to put on personal protective equipment. They're showing them guidelines and saying, well, these are all obsolete. You don't actually have to have more than 2 masks a day. You don't actually have to change these things. These are all guidelines that are definitely totally necessary, but they don't have the equipment, so they're telling them to ignore them. And so my sister came home today just not sure if she could do it, not sure if she's gonna have to quit her job. What's gonna happen? Apparently just the entire training staff is sort of in tears being explained the situation and being sent off to these crazy places where just everyone is sick. And like the janitors are cooking food because the wait staff are off sick, and it's just an absolute mess. So sorry to be kind of a downer today. The union, because they're government employees, they've disbanded the collective agreement from the union. It doesn't apply anymore. They're allowed to quit if they feel they're inadequately protected, but they have to prove it. And the Quebec government has been constantly changing the standards of what adequate protective equipment is, sort of to make it fit with what they are capable of. It really seems like it's not evidence-based, it's more pragmatism-based, and if you change the guidelines, then no one can accuse you of not following the guidelines. So here we are. That's the status of what's on my mind. How are you guys doing? I don't know. So I don't know. I don't know how it's gonna work here. Like, it seems to me that if they think that everyone's going to do that, people from speech therapy and psychiatrics or whatever, like people with no training in this, are going to feel they're able to do it and they're able to put their families at risk. I think they're going to have a lot of people walking off the job. I'm not sure what my sister's going to do, but it's really bad. I mean, I suppose the good news is that if you already have 75% of the people in a nursing home affected, it won't last all that long because there's not many more people for it to go through. But yeah, let's hang out here for a bit. I'm just gonna sit in the park. This is my home park, NDG. I think this is called I don't know. I won't necessarily tell you the name of the park, so you can't Google Maps snipe me. What's going on? What should we do today? Spent the morning with, caring for small children. Yeah, I mean, it's so, Dustin, it's weird to me that parks are closed of all places. Like, this is the thing that I'm seeing a lot. People are closing parks. And I don't particularly get it because you know, it's not hard to be super separated from everybody else out here. You know, I suppose they're worried about people not staying in small groups or whatever. But you'd think if you want to keep people to stay healthy and be willing to go through quarantine where they can't get close to anybody within their homes, you would at least let them go outside and wander in the grass, you know. Yeah. So let's see. So people asked me some questions. Yeah, that was a nice dog. Huskies are cute. Dude, we're still doing the please don't stop your singing. Well, I mean, I'm out here today. I could have brought like a ukulele or something, but I don't know how I would hold my phone while also doing ukulele. So if you don't want to watch this stream this time, if you don't feel like hanging out, that's okay. Melissa Gavin says here they're trying to open everything till the 4th of May. You mean open everything on the 4th of May? Or getting everything open by the 4th of May, or they're trying to keep everything open till the 4th of May? That seems optimistic to me, Melissa. If it's try to get everything open again by the 4th. Guys, I think we're in this for a year. I think that's the more I look at this, the more that's my indication. So maybe this time next year you'll be looking at Isolate Together number 365. Google Maps might, some people, I don't know what the delay is on this. Zach is asking, do I have any pets? Have you stopped making your videos? Please don't stop. No, I haven't, Shiraj. If you want to go if on Twitch, twitch.tv/acapella science, I will be live at probably something around 2 hours from now, and I'll be working on my next parody. I mean, it's not a very happy-go-lucky parody. It's pretty mournful parody, really. But I am making it, and then I've got another song that's already finished that just needs a whole lot of animation. But I've stopped it to work on this one because this one's actually COVID related. Twitch.tv/acapella science. Go and subscribe, subscribble. Yeah. What did you mean by that, Snipe? I mean, you know, if there's anyone watching this who like really wants to come and find out where I live so that they can, I don't know, they can track me down, which is a thing that I've been slightly worried about in the past with certain individuals. I should probably not put publicly on the internet my exact location, because this park is pretty close to my house. And so if you found this park and you wandered around, there's a not unreasonable chance that you could figure out where I live. And I would rather not dox myself. Yeah, the funny thing is that the Twitch stream is, like, even though it's in the middle of the night for a lot of people who are watching this, that's because this mostly got people for whom this is the evening right now. For me, this is 3 in the afternoon, right? Yeah, the link is in the description of yesterday's stream, which is still public, so you can go look at it. It's also in the Discord, just in a whole bunch of places. Anyways, if you just search Acapella Science on Twitch, you'll get it. Melissa, what's going on in Germany? Yeah. Have you had long hair, Tim? Yes, this is. I mean, I'm getting there again, haven't I? But aren't I? But this is not the longest that it's been. When I was a teenager, I was in metal bands a lot. I got a set of drums when I was 12. I played punk for a couple years, you know, because punk is the kind of music you can play with absolutely no experience. And then I switched to metal, and when I was in my metal phase, I grew my hair down to about, I don't know, like here-ish. I actually had very luxurious hair. I had a lot of girls tell me that my hair was, they wished they had my hair because it was apparently very nice hair. I don't know. Ever think of doing a metal song cover? Yeah. I've the two that are on my list right now are Nothing Else Matters and Through the Fire and the Flames. I've been trying to figure out both of those for some time. I think Fire and the Flames will probably get done first because it's like a cooler, I don't know, it's a more epic track. Although it's going to be really hard to do. Like that one is going to be there's going to be a lot of digital trickery going on to make Fire and the Flames into a a cappella song, because it's just, I don't know, I don't know if it's entirely doable. Yeah, let's see. They want all schools on May 4th, to open all schools on May 4th here in Germany. At least that's the plan so far. Yeah, it's, I haven't looked super into Germany's situation, but that seems unlikely to me, Melissa. Rush, good old Canadian band. R.I.P. Neil Peart, passed away recently. Yeah, I don't know. You need a good idea, is the problem. Like if I'm gonna do 2112, I gotta figure out something that's worth a 20-minute story, right? I don't know. What would work? Someone give me ideas for a Rush parody. What rhymes with Tom Sawyer? There must be some physicist with a Tom there, with a Tom name. Someone asked if I've ever contacted Weird Al. I've never talked to him. I've never actually been in contact with him. I saw him live when he was here in Montreal. He did like a show in the middle of just in the middle of the city outside. Great, like surprisingly good performer. Like it's really hard to do song parody comedy live and make it work. Like this is something that I feel like Bo Burnham struggled with, was like comedy songs, people listen to them over and over and they know them by heart. And that means by the time they come and see you live, the jokes don't land. It's like if you went and saw a stand-up and they were doing the same material that they did on a Netflix special for, you know, and you watched it like 10 times. Did he just go to the park? Yeah, here I am in the park. Not after dark, with a shark. But Weird Al was actually really good at mixing it up. Like he did a lot of, I don't know, he had a lot of like bits of his songs that were like weird mashups, or he'd change it around, or he'd come out in ridiculous costumes. And he had, I don't know, like all of his classics he kind of did in like micro bursts that would just like remind you of it and then like move on to something else before you got bored. He had a lot of like cool, I don't know, audio-visual gags going on. Is it really hard not to touch your face? Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, you gotta wash your hands and not touch your face. Best. You know, if you can do one of those really effectively, then you can probably get by mostly. You know, you get like 80% of it. Just do a straight cover of Rush's Natural Science. Yeah, I guess that would work. Or what's that one about the trees? Or the trees are they're like alive or whatever. What else we got going on? Probably do something smart with subdivisions. Yeah, I mean that sounds like, I don't know the song Subdivisions, but I would guess that you could do a lot with I don't know, depends how the lyrical content is. Why is it called Subdivisions? Is it because it has a lot of weird rhythmic subdivisions, or is that just how they titled it? Because Rush had a lot of weird rhythmic subdivisions, I can tell you that. Ooh, a taxonomy song. I mean, I did the Animalia chorus. That was kind of taxonomy-ish, phylogeny, or whatever you want to call it. Can you tell us a story? You mean like a fictional story? Like a story about my life, or a story about a dinosaur or something? My niece and nephew have been clamoring for stories. Tell us a story about a scary dinosaur. All right, well, once upon a time, there was a scary dinosaur that was best friends with a tiny little sheep, and the sheep had lots of troubles. It would get lost down the river, and every time it fell into the river, it would go bah bah, and the scary dinosaur would have to go and save it. Now, when the sheep was in the fields, the wolves would come and growl, roar, and then the scary dinosaur, even though it was friends with the sheep, was scary enough for everything else. So it would go off to the edge of the field and roar at the wolves even louder, roar, and scare them all away. One day, the sheep fell in the river, and it was carried downstream and over a waterfall. Whee! Sploosh! It landed in the water, and for a long time it didn't come up. The scary dinosaur was not perturbed. It ran off the edge of the cliff right beside it. Whee! Splash! And a giant splash. The splash was so big that the sheep was blown up into the sky and landed safely on the riverbank. And that is the end of the story. The scary dinosaur and the sheep went home to their cave, and they lived happily ever after. The end. Let's see. What else is going on here? Yes, I agree. It's gonna be a weird stream. I don't know. Someone asked me an interesting question. Hello, Tim. Hot here in Los Angeles today. You are amazing. Just discovered you recently. Sweet. Thanks, Alice. I'm glad to. I was expecting a story about some scar you got as a kid. That works. Oh, I could tell you the story of this scar. You can see this one on my hand. I got that one because as a kid I was a firebug, and like a lot of the times, my friends and I would just go and buy firecrackers and fireworks or whatever and set them off. And we'd start gigantic fires in our backyard or wherever. But this happened because I was a kid making a fire at a campground where my family used to stay every summer, and we had there. I didn't know much about proper kindling and proper proper usage of an axe. So there was an axe and there was kindling that you were supposed to chop into little sections, and I thought it would be a good idea to hold the piece of kindling like this and to chop it with the other hand. And well, I missed the kindling, or rather the axe bounced off the kindling and sliced right down here. You can see it very narrowly missed the tendon. Had quite a big gash, and blood poured out of my wound, and I was a little freaked out. But it wasn't that bad. I mean, we stopped it up and put a band-aid on it. I probably wouldn't have even had this if we'd actually gone to the hospital and gotten stitches, but we were camping in the middle of nowhere, and it was just like, well, let's disinfect it and put bandages on it. It'll be fine. It was fine. No, we just got this thing. And as Dumbledore says, scars have the power to remind us that the past is real. So, it's worth having a couple scars, I guess. Let's see. Tell us the first word that comes to your mind. Pumpernickel. I once nearly cut off my finger because I was washing a tea kettle and it exploded in my hand. Oh, I did. I exploded a Pyrex recently. I was making candied apples with a friend of mine, and we put the wrong burner on and left a big Pyrex bowl on the burner. And Pyrex is very heat resistant, but it's also and very, very well, it doesn't break easily. And I'm pretty sure the reason it doesn't break easily is because it's a tempered glass, and tempered glass is under high internal strain and stress, which makes it really, really, really hard on the outside because there's all these internal forces in it. But it also means that if you do succeed at breaking it, it explodes. So that is what happened. I'm not sure if that's what happened to your ceramic. It might have been. But I heated it to the point of breaking, and it exploded, and went all over Went all over the kitchen in tiny little, incredibly sharp shards. It was very long to clean up. Are we doing injuries? We could do injuries for a while. Borosilicate. Pyrex isn't anymore. You saying Pyrex isn't borosilicate anymore, or we now use borosilicate? My stepdad once cut halfway through his thumb while cutting kindling. Oof. Decided to super glue it together. That's I mean, super glue does work to seal up wounds. That's true. Yeah. You want to avoid quick temperature changes. Do you have a favorite element? Asked Valdemar Branding Hansen. I don't know. I like the uselessness of technetium. I know it's not actually useless, but just like the fact that no one ever, like it was just an element that was a hole in the periodic table, and it's like, well, we gotta fill it. Let's go make it. So they made it, and someone tell me the uses of technetium, because like every time I see fact pages of all the elements, the one fact for technetium was this is the first element that we had to make ourselves. So what was the? But does it have any other uses? Like if we had to make it ourselves, what was the point of? Then we're not going to use it in anything. What's the point of making it? I don't know. I like carbon. Carbon's pretty sweet. Carbon it's very versatile. You know, its ability to form 4 single bonds or some double bonds or some triple bonds. Corrosion inhibitor. Oh, and in medical imaging. Cool. How is it used in medical imaging? Is it just like a screen, like as a screen, or what? Or as a tracer? I like oxygen. I kind of like oxygen. Fun to breathe, says Radislava. Yeah, oxygen's cool. Favorite element is so weird. It's like there's most of the elements are in general required for life, and on some level. Which is the first element that isn't required for life? That like, if it didn't exist, we wouldn't miss it. I mean, maybe helium, actually. Does helium get used for anything that we actually need in our lives? I mean, I guess depends how tangentially you mean necessary for life. Like, I don't think we have any use for helium because it's super, super inert. But on the other hand, if helium didn't exist, then the whole you talk about the whole extinction of the sun's fusion reactor, and it's pretty important to have the sun do fusion, I would say. Although if helium didn't exist, then maybe the stars would just collapse further, and they would go straight to fusing lithium or carbon or something. I don't know. That would be interesting. I wonder if anyone's like tried like hypothetical universes where you just X out an element. Like for some reason this element doesn't exist. There's something wibbly wobbly, timey wimey that makes it too unstable to exist. So there's just like a hole in the periodic table, and figure out the universe that results from that. That sounds like a potentially a science fiction premise that someone could try if they're super into like hard sci-fi. Yeah, remove one element. If you could remove one element from the periodic table, which one would it be? Valdemar, you keep asking for my favorite fundamental constituents of the universe. I don't know, it's hard to tell things about favorite elemental particles, because really, I don't know what the elemental particles are. Ewa says carbon just to make things difficult. Well, yeah. I mean, it'd be difficult for somebody, but not for us. Because we wouldn't be around for it to be difficult, would we? Let's see. Federico says, I'm a PhD student in artificial intelligence. Any cool idea to apply it to physics? I mean, the first thing that pops to mind is I mean, there's two ways for that to go. One is that more and more physics is just like collecting massive amounts of data and needs better ways to process it. So I know for like the big physics collaborations like LIGO and the LHC and stuff like that, like there's so much data that you have to pare it down with a huge amount of like you have to do a lot of thinking to decide what data you want to look like, because it's just producing like, you know, terabytes every second. And that means that often you can't actually look through the data and just see what there is. You have to know what you're looking for and then go searching for it. And that's a problem that I feel like artificial intelligence could be very helpful for, right? Like taking that amount of data and doing the kind of like broad scope looking for patterns that aren't yet known that AI can be really good at. You know, that I think I mean there's already a lot of work going on in that, but it's a problem that definitely isn't solved. So if you wanted to, yeah, that's one way. I mean, if you want to stick on the more physics as applied to artificial intelligence research side, I would guess that, you know, we should look at quantum computing, because that's probably probably where the greatest source of combination of those two ideas right now. Like there's actually very few quantum computing algorithms. We know of a couple. We know Shor's algorithm and Grover's algorithm. You know, for things like factoring large numbers. There's like a couple good ones, but quantum computing is actually like a real. I don't know. It's like a couple trick pony at the moment, and there's probably a whole bunch more that can be done with it. That I don't know. I mean, one interesting thing is the application of AI research to actual physics research. Like, I don't know. I mean, this is what Wolfram is trying to do right now, and I haven't looked seriously into Wolfram's whole setup. This new thing that he's announced with like trying to use neural nets or like neural net models to establish like a fundamental physics theory. I have no idea how successful that's going to be, or how much of it is reasonable versus sort of self-delusion. But it's definitely true that there have been neural nets that have rediscovered a lot of classical physics. Like you just put a whole bunch of data in and you ask them, hey, what's the rule that explains this data? And, you know, they come out with, you know, Newton's laws or like least action principles or whatever. And that's the kind of thing that if you could get it scaled up, you know, might be really good for breaking through to the next level of physics. Because right now all that it's able to do is rediscover what we've already discovered. But we know that there's big problems with our theories, and we've been fighting to get them to work for quite a long time with each other. And that's not a thing that we've done yet. So it might take a mind smarter than us to do it. Or maybe, the thing is, like, if it takes a mind smarter than us, then AI will do it eventually, but it's going to be a long time. You know, it's going to be until we have general AI. But if it can be done with a specialized AI that's really just a super, like, turn data into patterned equations recognizer, it might actually be, it's not totally unfeasible to me that could be done with the current state of computing technology and AI if someone could figure out the right way to implement it. So I don't know, I guess that would be the answer to my question. Lopkabor says, why did the physicist and biologist break up? Because there was no chemistry. Well, joke's on them, because biology has plenty of chemistry, and physics is also the source of chemistry. If they couldn't generate chemistry coming from both sides of it, they deserve to be alone. This is what I would say. Okay? Can you bend one? If you can bend one element, which will it be? Mine's air. Air is not an element. You could bend nitrogen. That's most of air. If you could bend nitrogen, you're most of the way there. Is thermodynamics physics or chemistry? Neither, Mahir. Thermodynamics is fancy counting. Yeah, nitrogen bending. Let's see what we got. Hey, Tim. Do you think you'll ever do something with rocket dynamics? Maybe. I mean, I have been really into Elton John, and that sort of screams out for Rocket Man. But Rocket Man's been so used by, you know, like since Elon Musk launched a Rocket Man into space. I don't know a lot about rockets. I mean, I know about the exponential rocket equation. But in terms of like the engineering and internal workings of rockets, I think my understanding at this point is pretty, you know, it's like basic science enthusiast level, right? Like light this thing, send stuff that way, make you go that way. It's about as far as I go. You know, if you want to move right, you need to throw something left, and rockets are a real fancy way to do that, essentially. Rockets go up, hopefully. Yeah. If this part of the rocket is pointing up, you will have a bad day, and you will not go to space today. Full flow combustion. What's full flow combustion? I don't know, guys. I'm pretty tired right now, actually. What have you got going on in your life? And what are you interested in? What are you researching these days? Tell me facts so I can exploit them, so that I can steal your knowledge and put it into videos. I've got what other ideas do I have? So I've the Fire and the Flames one I want to do based on well, it's Through the Fire and the Flames by Dragon Force. That one's going to be about the fires and flames of creation, both the Big Bang and like the ignitions of stars, that sort of thing, and how we emerge out of these things, like the collision of matter and antimatter and the birth of the universe, stuff like that. The Nothing Else Matters one I would like to do about dark matter, because it just seems pretty obvious. Field Vibrations is already finished being recorded. Quarantine song, which is Imogen Heap, Hide and Seek, which is what we're streaming on Twitch right now, is getting there. We're about 2 minutes and 30 seconds into it. Yesterday we streamed /produced for like 4.5 hours and did about 25 seconds of recording, which brings us up to about 2 minutes 30. What else have I got in the works? I've been wanting to do Africa, Toto's Africa, based on the Out of Africa hypothesis and human evolution. I don't know. I must have other ideas. There was one I was thinking that I should do. It would be nice to do like an overview of an entire, like a sort of a band or an artist's entire discography. Something like I don't know, because I'm always, I don't know, it's kind of a meme that I'm more into Taylor Swift than people should generally be. I've been considering what I could do with like all the different eras of Taylor Swift, who's undergone many different transformations. And the one thing I can think of so far is the song Trouble, which works really well either with Hubble or with Bubble. I blew you a bubble when you walked in. I mean, I don't know what else to do with that. But like with the other one, like if I could do something like a Swift guide to telescope technology, do something with Hubble, right? But that's like literally the only idea that I have for that one. I don't know. I guess the idea would be to figure it out by the time James Webb is launching. Maybe catch that wave. I knew you were treble when you walked in. Yeah. I'm all about that bass, no acid. Yeah, I like those ones where you can go back and like look at the entire evolution of a field. Like exoplanets was really fun too. It just took forever. You know, it wasn't just the like the researching. It was I don't know, a little challenging, but it was mostly just like the fact when you're doing a song that long, you just have to keep going. I don't know. I could look through my notes and see what else I've got. I've got like so what I do when I'm brainstorming ideas is that like I've just got a folder in my notes on my phone that has like every like half baked parody idea that I have, and often they're just like 1 or 2 lines. It's like, oh, I thought of I don't know, Nicki Minaj super bass, something about super states, super solids and super liquid or super fluids or something like that. I can write it down. I don't know if it'll ever be a thing. It's kind of an outdated track, and I don't know if I want to work on super bass for that long. But here it goes. It goes into the notes, right? So I've got like a whole pile of those. Occasionally I'll just go and scroll through them, and so, like usually what happens is I have like one idea for a pun that I jotted down that's like good enough, and by the time I scroll through all of the random ideas that I had, I've actually bothered to research a couple of them. So that's probably where most things come from. It's like, oh, that's a good enough idea in terms of like the joke or the the connection to a song that it would work. And then I'll come back to it and say, oh, I actually know enough about that, or I've encountered enough interesting insights to that. I have an idea for a calculus parody of Shake It Off. Unfortunately, Alap Kabor, I already did Shake It Off. But so I wouldn't be interested in that idea, but I very much I feel like we should get something like right now the Discord, which if you're not on the Discord, you should go open up yesterday's stream, which you can find on my videos page, and you should go sign up in the Discord. Apparently there's lots going on in the memes page right now. The creative projects one right now is like, it's just general for whoever is making a creative project can like post it in that part of the Discord. But I actually think it would be like, I don't know if it belongs in creative projects, but it belongs somewhere. We should try to figure out something like a science parody academy, where I can, or even like an a cappella science in totality academy. I feel like just science parody song would be easier, where I can get a few of you and like, I don't know, walk you through how to think about writing and producing these things, maybe go step by step. Because I get so many people asking me like, hey, can you do this? And it's like, that would be like maybe, but honestly, I don't have the time. I have more ideas than I can implement, and yeah. Zach says you've got ideas. Yeah, there are quite a few ideas that we'll get there. I think ideas are easy to generate, and hard to implement, and that would be a huge undertaking. But it's one thing that I have thought of. Maybe you guys thought of too before I did. Yeah, I do have an ideas channel, but yeah, something more like a real, I don't know, something formal, like maybe a series on here or something if this keeps going for a long time. I keep saying that. I mean, we've been 33 streams now. I feel like this is going to keep going for a long time. But yeah, I don't know. I'll see about that. If there's any interest in that, maybe there's something. I think we're going to put in a voting channel on the Discord too, so people can vote on, or like whether there's interest in stuff. And once we get that, I'll see if there's any interest in that kind of thing. I expect there would be, because it would be cool to go through the process step by step, like take people through it, and like give you assignments, like an online class kind of thing. It's like, okay, this week your assignment is to brainstorm a whole bunch of ideas, and then start researching them, or like your assignment is to write, one verse to a song that, using these principles that I have laid out for you or whatever. Jan Hoffman says, I'd be happy to learn more about the process. I've written dozens of drinking songs for students, but, well, that's a start. Did you watch Taylor Swift's Soon You'll Get Better? Nope, I did not. Yeah, this is... Hang on, you want to get up? Let's get up. Let's move around a bit. I can show you around the neighborhood if you want. We got some... Who we got? We got some little old ladies. We got some people sitting on park benches who maybe don't want to be filmed. It's actually pretty warm out here. It's probably like, 10, 12 degrees, something like that. There's some people getting some exercise. They're not really staying 6 meters apart, or 6 feet apart, but close enough. I'm not sure if anyone is spying on us. Reborn Cicada says, in my country you'll get arrested for walking outside without official business. Yeah, well, where are you, Reborn? Here in Montreal, you can walk outside just fine. You cannot congregate in groups. You cannot visit people's houses unless you have an essential reason to, as far as I know. And the buses are still running. You might have just missed. I mean, it makes sense to me to keep people out of groups, but it doesn't really make sense to me to keep people from going outdoors. If people want any hope that the summer is going to make a virus spread less, the reason that the virus spreads less in the summer is that people are outside and exposed to the sun and far away from each other because there's just more space because they can be outside, right? Seems like an odd choice to make summer be more like winter by keeping everyone indoors even if they're going out and staying away from each other. But does anyone know like the rationale for that? Why it is that various countries have decided to do that? Is it just that they don't have the manpower to enforce isolation unless they can just enforce that everybody stay in their houses? Yeah, I guess it does depend on population density. Like if people going outside even a little bit would flood the streets and make it impossible to keep everyone away from everyone, then yeah, I suppose that makes sense. I remember all those videos of Italian mayors going and yelling at people for being close to each other in parks and stuff. But that also means that in Italy they were still allowing people out in parks, I guess. They're just not together. Yeah, Patrick, that's like, so Patrick says maybe more to make it seem like they're doing more than they actually are. So this is one thing that I'm actually pretty worried about in this whole COVID situation, because there's this general principle that applies to a lot of areas of human endeavors. It's called the 80-20 rule, or the Pareto principle, or power laws, or whatever you want to call it. And the general principle behind the 80-20 rule is that most of the time, 80% of the effects come from 20% of the causes. This is just kind of a general scaling law of complex systems. In any complex system, generally 20% of the effects will have 80% of the consequences. And what that means is that there might be a way to do a 20%, if you find the right 20% of things to if you find the right 20% of things to implement as restrictions, you, in a situation like this, presuming that this follows a similar sort of pattern, you could potentially get 80% of the benefit from that 20% of things, right? So 20% disruption and an 80% gain. But it's also, the flip side of that is that it's also possible to do the 80% of the wrong things. So like really clamp down to almost the full, like almost 100% lockdown. And if you choose the wrong ones, you'll only get a 20% benefit, and you'll still have, and you'll have all the restrictions and none of the benefits. And it's a little unnerving to me that it seems like a lot of the handling of this is based on what'll make people look like they're acting and doing something and being strong and taking a stand, right? Like, for example, the US and Canada. The US was, by the time that the US and Canada shut their borders between each other, there were so many people infected on both sides that it's the going between the two of them along the border probably doesn't make any conceivable difference, right? Like, if you add up all the people who are already seeding the infection here, and add a couple of people who are coming across the border every day, unless you're doing everything else to the point where you're isolating and, I don't know, like until you're clearing regions of disease, isolating those regions doesn't really make much sense, does it? But it's a strong move, right? That you can say, oh, here's, we're clamping down on the border, right? We're not effectively keeping people away from their homes, and we're not effectively taking care of our elderly people as a disease races through their homes. But we're closing the border to the US, even though it wouldn't make a difference, right? And that gives you something to say. So I don't know how much of that is like, and I wouldn't ascribe all of that to malice by any means. It's just that if you're not, I don't know, if you're a politician, there are particular solutions that'll come to you that seem obvious or that seem implementable for you, and those are the ones you go for. Yeah, the world is planned by a big social mess of varying incentives, and what if it needs to have central planning? That doesn't necessarily mean that there is anyone centrally planning it. Yeah, trying to keep away from folks as they go in and out of residences. Yeah, I still gotta watch that Vihart video, don't I? See if I can cross. Hey, let's run across. Woo! Often in jest says the planet belongs to germs. We just live here. I mean, we are germs. I don't mean that in the like, we are the virus sort of way. But we're descended from germs. Our mitochondria are former bacteria. And bacteria are, the bacteria that we have are innately tied to us and would go extinct without us. There's a good minute Earth video about how our changing diets are extincting portions of our gut flora that I found really interesting. There's a thing I was thinking about today. So this is something that I was talking about to John Perry on Stated Clearly, and I would like to talk to him more about. Last time we were talking about how this is like one of the great misnomers of evolution is that selection is good. It's one of those things that you get that gives you a lot of arguments for eugenics and all sorts of fun things, like, oh, like, selection makes the species stronger. You kill off the sickly ones, and the herd itself is better able to withstand the elements or whatever. It's actually not true at all. Every selection is pretty much bad for a species as a whole, because you have a certain portion of genetic diversity that would allow you to get through a certain range of circumstances. And if every selection effect removes some of that genetic diversity, and if it's already removed, you can't get it back. So if you then encounter another selection effect later that has the opposite overlap, where the only things that would have survived were the ones that were preferentially killed off by the previous selection, then you just die as a species, right? Whereas you could have survived previously. So it's advantageous for a species to avoid selection, natural selection, as much as possible, and preserve your genetic diversity for when you need it. The upshot of that is that it's interesting to think about, like, there's also this misnomer, I guess, that you and I come from, like, are in some sense a product of death, that it's the result of that we're the result of the billions of organisms that failed to be the right thing that survived, allowing you and I to be the thing that survived. But in fact, it's kind of the opposite. We're a product of life. Everything that died is a product of death, which is pretty obvious to say. But if nothing had ever died, if there were never selection, if the first time an organism replicated, both its all of its progeny replicated and all of their progeny replicated down and down till now, if the whole tree had never been pruned, our branch would still be here. We're in fact, the whole tree has been almost entirely pruned. There are very few branches surviving, and the ones that do survive are the ones that are very adapted to the environment, and those are us, right? If you never had any selection, you would have a whole bunch of organisms that were just entirely hopeless, that would have no chance under any sort of environmental selection pressure, and you're just arbitrarily keeping alive and replicating. But on the other hand, there are some cases like this where one selection will select for one organism, a different selection will select for the other organism, so neither of the population can survive, and so the whole population goes extinct, right? And so if there had been no selection ever in the entire history of life, and from the first cell we had been growing exponentially, which would just be like an absolutely insane amount of organisms, it would be like if you're talking exponential from the point of like the first bacteria, when bacteria grow at a rate of 10,000 fold a day, like the amount of organisms that you're talking about that would survive at present day would just be absolutely absurd. But in that plethora of organisms, not only would there be us, there would also be some organisms that, because there weren't these double binds that would wipe out their whole lineage, might be even better adapted to our environment if today we suddenly turned selection on. This obviously this could never happen. Like in the real world, there's always resource caps. Like exponential expansion always stops. There's not enough particles in the universe to keep it going long enough, probably, for this thought experiment to be true. But it's interesting to wonder, like, if it could be true, how much more complex and adapted to the environment would be the absolute best organisms that are currently adapted. Like if you compare the best organism on that entire gigantic exponential tree to us, or like to the organisms that are best adapted to this world, which ones would be at the top? I don't think it would be us. I think it would be some random one that got pruned accidentally, because there's just so many that could have, had they survived, could have gotten further ahead than us. So I don't know, I'd like to nail that down, because I think if I could make that formal, it would not only be a really interesting concept for like a hypothetical for a video, like a really, like if I could make it mathematically rigorous, or at least mathematically obvious, it'd be a real, like, I don't know, it'd be a real place to point people who get really obsessed with selection and all, like, survival of the fittest, bro. Like, we need to cull the weak. I don't know, it'd be interesting to make that mathematical. I don't know what you guys think about that. Because you could do it, right? If you assume some sort of exponential growth, you could figure out the staggering number. You could figure out the rough rate of mutation. You get an idea of the overall number of organisms. You could figure out how likely it was for any organism of our particular abilities to survive to accidentally go extinct instead. Yeah. Let's see what people are saying. We also have epigenetics. That's what governs most of our genetic expression. Yeah. It's all a feedback on itself, right? Like our epigenetics is determined by our genetics. Because, you know, our genes code for the histone proteins and code for the proteins that interpret methylation and everything else. And those proteins in turn turn on and turn off which genes should be active in our particular environment for our particular case of our cell type or our situation or whatever it is. Yeah, I don't mean to restrict it to genetics either. I just mean like anything that could be a point of complexity of like overall variation. Non-Euclidean says we could try that in Primer's engine. Yeah, I think that it'd break every known computer to try and run that evolution experiment in some ways it's a lot simpler, because you don't have to, if you completely turn off selection, most of the complexity of figuring out what survives and what doesn't gets totally thrown away. You're just like endlessly expanding to the entire, it's like you start at some point on the evolutionary landscape and you just expand outward at the speed of evolution in all directions. And then you look at that overall like hyper ball of space contained in the evolutionary landscape that we would have figured out how to get to just by the velocity of change, and you find the optimization point for survival in this particular environment. Like, it's not doable, it's not a tractable problem, but it's also like because there's no decisions really to be made. It might actually be fairly simple to think about, get some raw numbers on like the number of different variations, and I don't know. I'm gonna wait for John to get back to me. I asked him the question initially and he didn't seem to quite understand it. Yeah. So, what is the speed of evolution? I mean, and it changes depending on like what your mutation rate is. There's some indication that bacteria have actually optimized their mutation rate. They've figured out the optimum amount they should mutate to get the best evolution for their buck. Whereas us, it doesn't seem like we have. But there's some animals that have higher mutation rates, some that have slower. That itself seems to be in some ways an adaptation. You know, organisms that have a history of having to mutate fast will end up mutating fast. I mean, our B cells can ramp up their rate of mutation to figure out a novel pathogen really fast. So there's some play in that. Guys, I think I'm gonna have to go because my battery is at 1%. My battery is about to die, and so unfortunately I didn't get a lot of time to talk to you here in this park.